Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome to the show. I hope those of you who had a Thanksgiving yesterday had a nice one and are having a good holiday season so far. If anybody went shopping for Black Friday, I hope you were not trampled. I don't think that's as much of an issue now that a lot of people do online shopping, and uh, I guess it's less of a trampling risk when you do like Cyber Monday shopping. But anyway, thanks everybody for being here. As usual, I will be answering questions that were submitted ahead of time by my wonderful Patreon patrons and channel members in the first part of the show. So once I get through those, I will turn my full attention to everybody who is with me right now in the live chat. Hi, everybody. But until then, I will not be paying close attention to the live chat. I'll be focusing on the questions. So if you have something you want me to talk about or something you want to ask me, or especially if you were planning on being generous and dropping in a super chat or something into the live chat, please, if at all possible, hold on to all that stuff until I get through the pre-submitted questions. And then you have my full attention for the rest of the show. So let's get started, shall we, with the patron and member questions. And the first one of those comes from Oasis, who says, "Hey, Steve, long time no see in these little shindigs. I had a friend recently get guilted by their store manager into coming in for them. The store manager had to go to cancer appointments with his wife, and corporate wasn't helping him. But he is taking it out on my friend and said that if they did not, that they would be screwing the store over. Now, obviously, you and I do not subscribe to such ridiculous theories, but what I was hoping to hear from you would be your thoughts on the best way to resist such notions. To be clear, the fact his wife has cancer sucks, but this is not my friend's fault if they can't cover. Cheers." Well, I mean, I guess the question to ask is why should your friend have that kind of loyalty to the store? I mean, unless your friend has some kind of a stake in it, unless your friend not you know what I mean? Like if your friend is just a regular sort of, hourly employee at this store and it's a job. I mean, like when I worked for an hourly wage, when I was the last proper job that I had, when I was working as a maintenance worker at a truck stop, like I worked for an hourly wage. I felt some personal loyalty to the people I worked with because I had good relationships with the people I worked with, including most of my managers. They were all good people who I got along with very well and would not have wanted to leave in the lurch unnecessarily. But I mean, at the same time, I think they and I all had an understanding that I worked my 40 hours a week and that was it. Like they would ask me to stay late sometimes, but I almost never did. Not because I had anything against them, not because I was trying to screw them, just because I'm scheduled for 40 hours a week. I'm fortunate that, I mean, yeah, overtime money is nice, but most of the time I didn't need it. I wasn't compelled by a couple of hours of overtime to work longer than I was scheduled. And so I just said no. I was offered and I said no. And I didn't feel like I was screwing over the store. And I didn't feel like I was screwing over anybody. I mean, you pay me what you pay me. I work when I'm scheduled to work. That's the deal. So I don't know if your friend can express a similar attitude to their manager or not. I mean, the fact that the manager's wife is having to undergo cancer treatments is terrible, and hopefully she's okay. And sympathies to the manager and to the wife, obviously, but like you said, it's not your friend's problem. I mean, are they friends, or is it manager employee? You know what I mean? Like that's another, like, what's the nature of their relationship? Like, are they actually friends? Is there like any sort of real personal loyalty at play between your friend and their manager, or is it just store manager and employee? Because if it's just store manager and employee, I really don't see why your friend should be working extra hours if they don't want to. No, I mean, if they want to, that's fine. But if they don't want to and they feel like they're being pressured into it, or as you say, guilt tripped into it because of the cancer diagnosis of the manager's wife, You know, like, again, that's terrible. My heart goes out to both of them, to the person with cancer and to the loved one of the person with cancer. But I mean, it's not your friend's problem. I mean, I know maybe that sounds heartless, maybe that sounds cold blooded, but I mean, it is what it is. It's a job. It's not your family. It's not your friends. It's your job. You work there to make money, to pay your bills, to keep a roof over your head. And unless that's not the situation, and there is more of a personal investment, either financially or emotionally, in that place and in those people, I don't see why your friend should feel the least bit bad about turning down overtime or saying, sorry, I'm not coming in if I'm not scheduled to work. Cancer or no cancer. John Burns, in the episode In the Pale Moonlight, after Garrick gets hit, it would have been fun for him to say, when we first met, I was but a tailor, but now I am the master. That would have been fun. Next, Netflix has a 4-episode series based on an award-winning book called All the Light You Cannot See. It's set during World War II, so you got your Nazis, and Mark the Incredible Hulk Ruffalo plays a man trying to escape Paris while the Nazis are entering Paris. And you see a column of Nazis around where Mark Ruffalo and the actress who plays his blind daughter was. As they do that, you can close your eyes and imagine the Hulk hulking on the real bona fide Nazis, just going to town on those assholes. Anyway, I'm now saying that all wars are boring and reporting on them is glorifying psychopaths, like glorifying a serial killer. Thoughts? Boy, you were doing okay until you got to that end part, John. I mean, like, look, I bet, by the way, I'm one of these days, hopefully not too far off, I do want to watch All the Light You Cannot See. I've seen it recommended on Netflix, and I've seen advertisements for it, and it looks kind of interesting. It's not, and Mark Ruffalo is in it, and also I think Hugh Laurie is in it as well. So I mean, it looks like it has a good cast. So I would like to check it out at some point. But no, I mean, okay, I guess it depends on the nature of the reporting, but no, reporting on wars is not automatically glorifying psychopaths or glorifying serial killers. Reporting on journalism that reports in an accurate and conscientious way on what is happening during wartime is incredibly important. Like, those of us who are not actually fighting in the war need to know what's happening, especially if it's our country, if it's our army that is involved in the war. Like, we need to know what's happening. The people need to be informed. The public needs to be aware of what is going on during wartime. I think that's very important. And I think that kind of journalism is absolutely vital. So no, I mean, now look, are there ways that you could be reporting on it that would glorify it, that would be, not helpful or damaging or harmful in some way? Yes, of course. But if it's done responsibly and with an eye toward the truth, if it's good journalism, then no, it's not glorifying psychopaths or glorifying a serial killer. And no, I would also not. I mean, I think it's just an appalling opinion to say all wars are boring. What? I mean, there are all kinds of things you could say about just, because it's the current in the headlines, urgent happening right now situation. There are all kinds of things you could say about the military assault on the Gaza Strip by the Israeli Defense Forces. Like, there's all kinds of words you could use to describe what is happening there. Boring would never enter my vocabulary. Whatever it is that is happening there, it is definitely not boring. And most war zones, most wars as they are occurring, I do not think it would be at all fair or accurate to call them boring. But, your mileage may vary. But no, I don't think that reporting on wars is glorifying psychopaths or glorifying serial killers. Matt L. So, capitalism question. Do you think reselling / scalping currently produced products is acceptable? Such as Walmart stocks hobby items at MSRP. Person comes in and buys them all and charges 2 to 3 times the price. Supporters say supply and demand, since there's not enough product. But to me, scalpers create artificial demand beyond what would be normal. Should companies anticipate scalpers and massively make product to compensate? Or are scalpers immoral because they steal potential product from would-be users? personally, I hate scalpers. They ruin or damage things that are meant to be fun. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of scalpers. I mean, whatever is the best way to block them or prevent them from doing what they do, I think, blocking them from scalping is a good idea for the reasons that you allude to in your question. I mean, when a scalper buys up all of the available items, whether you're talking about consumer products or tickets to a concert or a show or whatever, and then they sell them themselves for their own profit at a markup or whatever price they sell them for, they're profiting off of an artificial scarcity that they have created. And I just have a hard time thinking that that's the sort of thing that should be allowed. We don't think it's a good thing when large companies do it. So why would it be okay if a smaller operator does it? Like you're profiting off of you're forcing people, or at least compelling people, asking people, pressuring people to pay more for something they want than they would have had to pay if you weren't involved, for no other reason. Like there's no other reason why it costs more, just the fact that you bought it first and now you're reselling it and you want to make a profit on it. So no, I'm not cool with that. Yeah, no, I'm not cool with that at all. I don't usually find myself in situations where I have to deal with scalpers or have to worry about them. So I don't have a lot of built up, animus toward them. But since you asked, no, I am not a fan of scalpers, and I don't think that sort of thing should be acceptable. David Colby! Exclamation point! I have a pitch for a teaser for a Strange New Worlds episode. Oh, this should be good. We open on Pike in his cabin making coffee. The ship is hit by a weapon. The room shakes, and one of his carving knives whips out of the wooden block it's in, cartwheels through the air, then plunges to the hilt into his mouth. As he gargles blood and broken teeth, the ship is hit again and the wine cabinets open, and one by one the bottles fall onto his head, shattering like plates against Ash Williams' head from Evil Dead 2. Blood streaming from his lacerated scalp, knife wobbling from his jaw, Pike stumbles blindly through the room, then pitches face first into his open fireplace and goes up like a Roman candle. Opening credits. And we come back with him perfectly fine, leaving medical with a single line about dermal regenerators and go on with the rest of the plot. Thus, we completely ruin all medical dramatic tension for the rest of the show, and we get an Evil Dead 2 bit of physical comedy. Anson Mount can do it. I agree with you completely. I think it would be great. I would love to see it done. My one tweak is I don't think the line at the end when he's leaving sickbay should reference dermal regenerators. I think we should cut to Pike completely fine, completely healed, jumping off of the bio bed, and just have Dr. Mbenga say something like, oh, now and you be more careful next time, or something like that. But yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. And you know what else? If they did that, funnier than any Lower Decks joke ever. Air One Fire, who thinks to hunt a species to extinction is not logical. Hey, Steve, guess what episode aired precisely on the day I was born? Genesis. This perfectly explains my intellectual capabilities and why I am so hilarious. Speaking of which, 2024 is the first year in years which starts on a Monday. That makes it the perfect time to introduce my new calendar. Every month starts on a Monday and has exactly 28 days. This gives us exactly 13 months every year, plus 1 or 2 days that don't belong to any month or week, and it's just pure debauchery. The festival day would be named after me, of course, and we can call the 13th month after, I don't know, you. And if you don't know what day of the week it is, you just have to ask, hey, what day of the month is it? 9th? That means it's Tuesday. My question is, do you or do you not support my rational New World Order? Think about it. Once I became Emperor of Earth, a certain YouTuber and his podcast-producing sidekick could gain complete control over a certain science fiction franchise. Well, since you put it that way, I completely support you. And I welcome the day when you are the emperor of Earth and your rational new world order is the law of the entire globe. Yes, I support this 100%. And it is purely for reasons of personal selfishness. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm completely on board with this. And of course, we all know, what renaming, like rejiggering the calendar and, adding another month and renaming stuff. And, that worked out so great for the French during the French Revolution. So I'm sure it'll work out great for your New World Order as well. But no, seriously, I'm 100% on board. Jim Luck Pickirk. Hey, Steve. Hoping this question finds you well. I first discovered your channel through your atheism related content at a time when I had become quite disillusioned with much of the so called online skeptic community as it tumbled into right wing shitheadery. Your stuff was quite the breath of fresh air at a time when a lot of online atheists slash skeptics were yelling about SJWs. Remember when that was the buzzword du jour before they appropriated woke? I'm interested in your perspective as someone who was making atheism themed stuff online at that time. Did the reactionary shift in that community come as any sort of surprise at the time, or had you already seen some warning signs? Apologies if this gets into stuff you may have already talked about in the past. It was a little surprising, but it probably shouldn't have been. I think it was only surprising to me because I was sort of in the middle of it and I wasn't necessarily poking my head up and looking around and taking the long view until it became undeniable. I, I mean, I think I was probably one of the first quasi prominent, semi prominent people in the YouTube portion of the online skeptic or atheist community who started to recognize it and like vocally speak out against it, or at the very least, very intentionally and with a degree of self-awareness say, okay, I am definitely not doing that. Like I am not one of those guys. So, um, but I probably should have done that even earlier than I did. I probably should have made it abundantly clear from, the first time I started doing atheism related content and started gaining traction. I probably should have made it absolutely crystal clear to everybody. Hey, I'm not an anti-feminist. I'm not an alt-righter. I'm not an anti-SJW asshole. Like that all of that is repulsive to me. I don't want anything to do with that. I think that's, embarrassing at best and bigoted and repugnant at worst. And I'm just not down with that. And if you're down with that, I don't want you watching my videos. Fuck you. I mean, I did all of that eventually, but I probably should have done it before before I did. And so yeah, it was a little. And I'll tell you what else. It was maybe again at the time, and again, it probably shouldn't have been, but it was a little surprising how far toward the reactionary right wing stuff the shift was. How many prominent YouTubers embraced that. I mean, it was almost all of them who were at my level or above, because I was not like, I was not one of the leading lights of that community. There were a lot of atheism themed YouTubers who were way more popular and way more influential, had much larger audiences than I ever did, or that I even did, that I still have. So, but almost all of the really big, really popular ones, embraced that anti-SJW shit. And looking back, that is a little shocking and I mean, and disappointing and upsetting and all the other things. But the fact that it was almost every prominent voice there, I mean, there were exceptions, there were definitely exceptions and thank goodness for those. But there were so many, and also all of they didn't all embrace it to the same degree, but almost all of them embraced it at least a little, or at the very least were a lot more tolerant of it than they should have been. Like to me, the only acceptable response to like the alt-right, anti-SJW, anti-feminist stuff, the only acceptable response is to smack it as hard as you can, is to absolutely come down super hard on it and say, fuck this. And if this is your thing, fuck you too. Get the fuck out of here. You know, it's like the old story about if one Nazi walks into your bar, you have to get that guy the fuck out of there the first night, because if you allow the Nazi to hang out in your bar, then the next night there's going to be 2 Nazis, and the next night there's going to be 4 Nazis, and pretty soon, before you know it, you're running a fucking Nazi bar. You know, if you see one, you have to say, fuck you, get the fuck out. And that to me should have been the response to the alt-right stuff in the atheism community. Nope, fuck you, get the fuck out. This is not for you. You're not welcome here. And like I said, there were very, very few of us who had any sort of platform who were willing to do that and did that. And that is a shame. And it hurt the atheist community. It hurt the atheist movement. And I mean, we deserved it because of the kinds of people that we embraced. But it's disappointing that it came to that, because most of those assholes should have been kicked out as soon as they revealed themselves for who they were. But that's not what happened. Black Cover 95. At the last election, when I checked the ballot, I was met with a surprise. Nearly every candidate was running on Democrat and the Republican side. Some were even running against themselves as third party. I wasn't too familiar with the candidates, poor preparation on my part, so I couldn't even think of someone I'd rather write in their stead. Is there a point in voting if the runners are unopposed? I mean, I suppose not, unless there is a viable write-in candidate, but that's a symptom of an ailing democracy that we don't really talk about all that much, because you typically only see that on a local level. And we don't talk about local politics very much, and we probably should, not in terms of specifics, because if you talk specifics about your local political situation, it's not going to mean anything to people outside of your locality. But in general, we should be encouraging other people and reminding ourselves of how important it is to vote in local elections. And when it's election day, and it's even if it's like a big general election, like a presidential election, there's still going to be local elections on your ballot, and you need to know who those candidates are and who you support, and who you should be voting for, and make sure that you do that. Make sure that you vote down ballot in every race. And if there are a lot of people running unopposed, I mean, look, if Democrats run unopposed and they're, at least reasonably progressive people, just selfishly, I'm fine with that. But, my own personal opinions about which party we would be better off winning elections aside, that's not a good sign. If local political parties are unable to even get someone on the ballot. That was my frustration with my local Democratic Party here in Washington County for years. There were multiple elections would go by, and we would have state level elections, like elections for our state Senate and our state House of Delegates, or for local offices, county offices, etc. And this is a very conservative area, so it would usually be Republicans running for office, and there would be no Democrat opposing them. There would be nobody. Like, it was just, they would just be allowed to sail on through. And that used to piss me off so bad. We do have a Democratic Party in this county. Like, it exists. Why is there not a candidate running against this Republican for state senator, for state delegate, for county commissioner, whatever? Like, why is our local Democratic Party allowing the Republicans to run unopposed against, even if, okay, it's Washington County, Maryland, it's deep red, it's fucking Trump country, they're probably going to lose, but we should at least be putting someone on the ballot against them. It's just inexcusable. Like, that's what you're there for. That's why the party exists. And, it's inexcusable to me, but sometimes they just honestly can't find somebody, and it is not a good sign. So, it's not just about, is there a point in voting? I mean, it's a sign of maybe poor health of the local political party, that they can't even bother or be bothered or find someone to even run against. someone in a particular race. It sucks. It's not good. I don't care for it. Although, again, if it's the Republican Party that can't find a candidate, you know what? I'm not going to break, that doesn't break my heart because fuck them. But that's just me. Agent Meister, who could eat a peach for hours. Wow, that may be the most suggestive thing I've ever heard from you. Peldor Joy, Steve, I just watched your video about Generations. Now, cards on the table. I love Generations as is. I wouldn't change a thing about it. Don't at me. It's purely sentimental, as it was the first Trek I saw in a theater. And I know it has its problems, but if I had to choose between the two versions you presented, I'd go with the Sans TOS version. I know how illogical that sounds, given my opening statement, but at the end of the day, Kirk and company had a near perfect send-off at the end of Star Trek VI. Anything more would just water down the ending of Undiscovered Country. I have no doubt your TOS version would do well as a Trek novel, and maybe some fanfic writer was taking notes as they were watching your video. At least your second scenario would cater to non-Star Trek fans as well as Trekkies and would be a gateway movie to any future TNG movies. Fun fact, I'm sending you this from Montenegro, and I discovered a dairy brand in this country called Ducat and a brand of dog food called Dax. How about that? That's pretty cool. Yeah, you know what? I mean, first of all, a lot of people mention this in the comments of that video. You mentioned that my pitch for the TOS crossover version of Generations, the alternate version that I pitch in my video, that would make a good novel. There's already a really great crossover novel about a single story that features both the classic Trek Enterprise crew and the TNG crew, and that's Federation by Judith and Garfield Reeves Stevens. That's a fantastic novel, and it's unfilmable at this point. Like, there's no way you could do it unless you like just either radically altered the premise of the novel or just recast all the characters and said, fuck it, we're casting new people for all the parts, and we're just doing it, and it's just going to be a standalone thing, which I would be fine with, but that's never going to happen. But yeah, Federation is terrific. Federation is better than the thing I pitched, and has the benefit of actually existing. I mean, it's never going to be a movie, but as a book, like, it's actually written. It's not just an idea that might turn out good if somebody did it. It's actually there that you can read and judge for yourself. But no, I mean, I pitched the full sort of, Enterprise meets Enterprise version in my video because that was just the premise of the video. And as I say in that video, if they wanted to do a crossover movie between classic Trek and TNG, they should have done that. And they weren't able to do that, so they decided to do kind of a half measure and say, well, we'll have a couple of classic Trek people in it at the beginning, and then we'll have Captain Kirk in it, and he'll come back at the end to team up with Captain Picard. So, it'll be a crossover, but it's mostly going to be TNG stuff. Like, that just, it feels like a half measure, and I'm not a fan of half measures if you can avoid them. I would probably prefer my no TOS version as well for a lot of the same reasons you mentioned. Yes, Undiscovered Country is the perfect ending. And the worst part about someone doing my first idea for the alternate version of Generations, where you do have the entire classic Trek cast in it alongside the entire TNG cast, the worst part of that is that it would be revisiting those classic characters after Star Trek VI. And I agree with you. Star Trek VI is the perfect ending. I would have been fine after Star Trek VI if we never, ever saw any of those original characters again. Not because I don't like them. I mean, I love them, but that's their ending. That's the perfect ending. We should never, ever see them again. Their story's done. Their story had the perfect ending. So just close the book. Don't open the book again. The story's over. Leave the book closed. But of course, that's, I mean, especially in especially in today's environment, with the hard lurch toward fan service and every possible situation, I don't, that whole idea is just alien, I think, to the people making the creative decisions for big franchises like this. But yeah, I would just because of that, I would rather them just have done a TNG movie as well. But, that's not what they did. I wonder if the Ducat Dairy stuff is any good. Isaiah Taylor, a couple of weeks ago, I watched the Taylor Swift Eras Tour movie in IMAX here at the Challenger Learning Center in my hometown of Tallahassee, Florida. To put it mildly, it was a truly magical experience. Even though it was a few weeks after the initial premiere, the theater was still full, and I was the only one in the theater dancing. I have a personal connection with Miss Swift's music. Back in 2009, I was homeless and living in a shelter, and I had a bunkmate who had Swift's 15 as his default alarm ringtone. When it was time to get ready for school, her opening vocals would signal that it was time to get up and get dressed. Also, her tune Shake It Off has a very 60s bubblegum beat to it. Steve, have you ever been to any concerts or seen any bands live? I'm still hoping to see the 90s alt-rock band Velocity Girl at the Black Cat in Washington, D.C. one day. I have not I've really not been to any concerts. No. I mean, I've been to like, stuff like gone to see like Maryland Symphony Orchestra shows at the Maryland Theater in Hagerstown. And for a couple of years there, I went to we used to have an annual thing in Hagerstown that they haven't done it for years, but we used to have the Western Maryland Blues Fest. It was like an all day outdoor concert with a bunch of there was 2 stages, one on either side of the outdoor venue, basically the big ass parking lot in the middle of the city that they had the event at. And there'd be bands playing on either stage all day. And it was great. It was great. It was blues music, and I love blues music, and it was awesome. But that was more of like a festival kind of atmosphere. It wasn't really like a concert there were particular acts that I wanted to see that I went because I wanted to see them, but it wasn't like buying a ticket to go see a particular band because you're a fan of that band, and then you just go to a club or go to a venue just to see them. So no, I don't really have any concert stories because I never really go to concerts. It's not really my thing. And here's a fun fact. I probably have heard a Taylor Swift song at some point, but I couldn't tell you what it was. Like I've completely missed the entire Taylor Swift thing. I'm very glad that her music makes so many people happy. I think that's great. I'm glad that she has her fans and that her music enriches their lives in such a profound way in many cases. But I can't honestly name a single song of hers that I've ever heard. I'm like I said, just through sheer osmosis, I'm sure I've heard one at some point, possibly more than one, but I couldn't tell you. But I'm glad you went to see the movie, and I'm glad you had a good time. Cranjus McBasketball, I have only one question for you. What gives you the right? What gives me 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 the right? That's what you're asking. The Constitution, I guess. The International Declaration of Human Rights, although probably not. I'm pretty sure that the United States never actually ratified that. I honestly don't know. Thanks for the question, though. General Contact Unit Problem Child. I said I'm optimistic about Biden winning again. I'm not so much anymore. Given polling, in spite of your reassurances, it's not worth worrying about this far out. That said, what do you think leftist political organizing would be like if Trump wins again? Like, I feel like a lot of leftists are like, if Trump wins again, the world is just screwed, which I kind of understand. I mean, Trump does keep escalating the fascist stuff he wants to do. But at the same time, I feel like it's a mistake to be like, Trump won again. Guess America is just Nazi Germany now and we're fucked. Well, yes, of course it would be a mistake. Look, if Trump wins again, it will be most likely devastating to democracy in this country. It will not be a fun 4 years. If 4 years is all the longer it lasts. And I'm sure in addition to that, just emotionally, it will be incredibly deflating, and it'll be depressing, and it'll be very easy and very understandable from an emotional point of view to just say, oh God, fuck this. You know, if this is the country that most people want, or at least most people who bother to participate in the electoral process, if this is what y'all voted for, you know what? Fuck it. Go ahead. Do whatever you want. Run the country however the fuck you assholes want. See what happens. Fuck it. What's the point? What's the point? You know, if this is the country you want, this is the country we'll have. I understand that attitude from an emotional perspective. I get it. But God, if Trump actually wins again, if we're stuck with another Trump administration, then leftist political organizing will be more essential than ever. The only hope we would have of surviving that period as an intact democracy would be for everyone who is not on Team Trump to get it together finally for once, like we should have done in 2016, and say, all right, we've got to fight this. We've got to keep this from getting any worse. You know, I mean, if we all just throw up our hands and say, well, I guess, yeah, like you say, well, I guess we're just Nazi Germany now, fuck it. Well, then that's what's going to happen. Like, that's what's going to happen. Trump and the people on his side, these Project 2025 people, these Republicans who are, you know, completely all in on the whole Trump deal, they will completely tear this place down if we let them. Like, make no mistake about that. They will completely tear this place down if we let them. So, I mean, obviously the best thing to do is to make sure he loses this election next year. You know, if you want to find what will leftist political organizing be like if Trump wins again, the best answer to that question is we'll never fucking know, because he's not going to win, because we're going to beat him in the next election, and then it's not going to be a fucking problem. And hopefully that's what happens. And I still do believe it's not, you know, it's not time to panic this far out from the general election. But, you know, if the worst happens and he wins next year, then yeah, okay, take some time, just like happened last time, like after he won the first time. Take some time, you know, grieve, be depressed, be pissed off, do whatever you need to do. But then it's time to get back in the game, man. It's going to be a long 4 years if that happens. And the most important thing is making sure that 4 years is all the longer it lasts, and that we actually have an election in 4 more years. We're going to have to actually fight to make sure that happens. So, you know, if worse comes to worse, we're going to need that, not just like avowed leftist, but everybody even slightly to the left of Trump, everybody who realizes and recognizes, okay, we need to get this guy the fuck out of there, and we need to stop this guy from implementing the agenda that he wants to implement. You know, it's going to be all hands on deck. So yeah, you know, it would be a terrible mistake, I agree with you, to say, fuck it. As understandable as that might be on an emotional level, that's the last thing we can do. Stephen G. Clenard. Hey, Steve, what has the world come to? I recently read that Daryl Hall is suing and seeking a restraining order against John Oates, his longtime partner in the band Hall & Oates. Knowing your inexplicable yet undying love for 80s middle-brow radio-friendly pop music acts, you know me well, I'd like to offer my moral support in these trying times. I'm here for you, man. Not physically here, of course. And not really emotionally here, since we are merely parasocial friends at best, but, you know, here for you, man. Anyhow, this raises the obvious musical question. Supposing you were in a romantic relationship where you would do anything, well, almost anything, that your beloved wanted you to do, what is the one thing that you could not go for? No can do. Just don't put your finger up my ass. I'm just not into that. Just don't do that. I'm not comfortable with it. Other people are comfortable with it, and that's fine. I don't mean to kink shame people who are into that, but just don't, you know, just leave that alone. Don't be putting your finger up my ass. Is that okay? Like, can I ask you that? Can I just say, just don't do that? Just don't do that. I'm not judging your desire to do it. I'm not saying that like you should feel bad for wanting to. I'm just saying, you know, I have a say in this too. And I'm asking you not to do that. Okay? Is that okay? Are we cool? I mean, are we still, is this still going to happen? Okay. Yeah, you know, or I mean, either that or like attending literally any family functions. I'm done with that. I'm done with that. I'm not going to say here's like, I'm not going to be one of those assholes that's like, well, I was married and now I'm divorced and I'm never doing that again. I don't fucking know what the future holds. I don't know what's going to happen in 5 years, 10 years, whatever. I'm not making any declarations except this. If I ever find myself in a serious long-term relationship with another person and they say, hey, my cousin or my brother or my sister or whoever is getting married and we're invited to the wedding, I'm going to say, well, you have fun because I'm not going. You know, or it's Thanksgiving. We're gonna go to my family's Thanksgiving, and there's like 100 people that are gonna be there. You know, it's like a great big family Thanksgiving or family Christmas or family Easter or whatever. Have fun. Have fun, honey, because I'm not gonna be there. Because I've been there and done that, and I'm not doing that anymore. But other than that, I mean, I can't really think of anything. You know, Thanksgiving with your family? No can do. Yeah, no, I'm done with that. I'm done with that. Here's another question from Marge Irene Buttercup. Hi, Marge. Is this your first time? Is this your first time asking a question? Anyway. Hey, Toots. We all loved your Monday video where you cut wrestling promos for randomly generated matches. Well, my dancing monkey, I believe that my Patreon and or channel membership, let's go with dollars entitles me to direct you to cut a promo for the following match. Opponent, Ed Begley Jr. Venue, West Winds Sports Facility, Victorville, California. Beef, mispronounced superfluous during a local TV morning show. Well, get to it. All right, then. Here we go. A wrestling promo. My opponent, Ed Begley Jr., the venue, the West Wind Sports Facility in Victorville, California. And the reason I'm mad at Ed Begley Jr., because he mispronounced the word superfluous during a local TV morning show. All right, then. Okay, here we go. Ed Begley Jr., you know, I remember when I was a trainee for becoming a professional wrestler and I was just breaking into the business, and the old salty wrestler who trained me, he said, kid, number one lesson that you always have to remember is it's nothing personal. It's a sport. It's a job. Your opponent is just someone that you need to do your best and beat so you get that winner's purse. It's nothing personal. And all these years I've been a professional wrestler, I have kept that in my mind. And for the most part, with a few notable exceptions here and there, I've held fast to that rule. Nothing personal until now, until this match with you, Ed Begley Jr., that we have coming up this weekend at the West Wind Sports Facility in Victorville, California. All you folks, all you wrestling fans in Victorville are going to want to see this, because you're going to see one of the few times when a match with me and my opponent gets personal. Because Ed Begley Jr., I'm going to tell you something. During the build up to this, I've been watching you carefully because I like to watch my opponents and see what I'm in for. And I saw you on TV the other day on that morning show, and I just want to tell you something about me. I might be thought of as just a simple, ignorant professional wrestler, just a grappler, but I'm an educated person. I went to college, Ed. And you know what I majored in college, Ed? English. I like to think of myself as a connoisseur of the English language. I like to think of myself as someone who has mastered the English language and is able to employ it in a pretty effective way when I'm doing things like this, when I'm trying to talk people into the seats, when I'm trying to convince people that they need to be there in Victorville to watch me fight you, Ed. And the reason why it's personal between us, you might not think so. We've never even seen each other before in person. We've never been in the ring together, Ed Begley Jr. But on that appearance in that morning show, what did you say? What word did you use? What word came out of your mouth? I actually, you know what? I'll say it the way you said it, Ed, because that's the whole issue. Superfluous? Is that the way that word is pronounced, Ed? Superfluous? No. And you would think that a person with your pedigree, with your history, being the child of a great actor, being a great actor yourself, in addition, apparently, to being a professional wrestler, you think you would know that, wouldn't you, Ed? You would know how to pronounce the word superfluous. Well, I'm going to tell you something, Ed. I didn't go to college for 4 years to get an English degree so that I could stand across the ring from someone who pronounces that word superfluous and not beat his ass. Because that's what's going to happen, Ed Begley Jr. You did something that I cannot forgive. You wronged me and you wronged our shared language, the language of English that I got my education in, that I spent money on, that I spent 4 years of my life getting a degree in. Superfluous. I'll tell you one thing that's not going to be superfluous, Ed, and that's the beating that I'm going to put on you in Victorville. So get ready, Ed Begley Jr., because I don't know if you can pronounce it, but what you have coming, 2 words, hyphenated, ass beating. That's what I got. That's my improv promo. Went a little long, I thought. If I was doing that for a video, I might take another crack at that and try to cut it down. But anyway, there's my promo on Ed Begley Jr. And by the way, if people find this entertaining and anybody has pitches or prompts for wrestling promos and you want to drop them in the live chat after not right now, but after I get through with the patron questions, I would love to cut some more promos for people. If that is something you're remotely interested in seeing. Anyway, on with the pre-submitted question. So here's some random geek says, happy 150th Ask Away, Steve. Thank you very much, my friend. Steve, have you heard of the National Day of Mourning? Since 1970, Native Americans have gathered at noon at Coles Hill in Plymouth to commemorate a National Day of Mourning on the U.S. Thanksgiving holiday. Many Native Americans do not celebrate the arrival of the Pilgrims and other European settlers. To them, millions of their people, the theft of their lands, and the relentless assault on their culture. Participants in National Day of Mourning honor Native ancestors and the struggles of Native peoples that survive today, or to survive today. It is a day of remembrance and spiritual connections, as well as a protest of the racism and oppression which Native Americans continue to experience. One thing white settlers can do, help those in need. Joey Fire Lame Deer is indigenous Lakota. They have been really struggling keeping the lights on, denied SSI and food stamps now, and can't work, disabled. Folks can donate via paypal.me/Joey Fires link, Venmo at Josephine-Fire, Cash App, $ Josephine Fire. Well, there you go. And if anybody wants to take advantage of those links to help out Joey Fire Lame Deer, that would be fantastic. And thank you, Geek, for using your question space to bring our attention to that and for reminding us about the Native American National Day of Mourning. Gee, I wonder why they would have a problem celebrating Thanksgiving. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Dana says, hey, Steve, there have been a lot of ups and downs this week, though isn't that always the case? And as I'm writing this, the promised truce between Israel and Hamas still hasn't happened. So I'm hoping you can share some things that will lift our spirits and help us find reasons to keep doing the work. Since I've got room, 2 questions. 1, what are some of the things you're grateful for? And 2, will you share a funny or otherwise memorable holiday story involving wee small Steve? Happy Friday, Steve. Something, merry and bright, I guess. I believe the truce has gone into effect now. the temporary truce, the 4-day truce. And then but of course, during the truce, Netanyahu said, as soon as the truce is over, we're going to go right back to bombing, and we're going to bomb for at least 2 more months. So, enjoy it while it lasts, unfortunately. But yeah, but the truce has since gone into effect, and hostages have begun to be exchanged. So at least there's that. What are some of the things I'm grateful for? I mean, I'm grateful for people in this country who fight the good fight, who try to make things better. And I mean, I consider myself one of those people, but I'm really grateful for people who actually go out and do stuff other than make videos about it. I mean, I like to flatter myself a little and say videos I make and, things that I say might make a difference in some minuscule way, but I'm not really helping all that much. People that are actually out there on the streets, volunteering and organizing, people who are raising money, people who are running for office, people who are, helping, and people who are doing direct action, who are helping to support people living in poverty, helping to feed hungry people. I mean, people who are actually out there physically doing things to try and lift people up and make the world better. I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful for them because they're the people that are holding this whole thing together and stopping this whole thing from sinking even deeper than it has already sunk. So those are the people that I'm grateful for. Those are the things in general that I'm most grateful for. Will I share a funny or otherwise memorable holiday story? I thought about this. I read your question earlier today, and I've been racking my brain all day to try and think of like a memorable holiday story that I haven't shared before. And I can't think of one. Like I don't honestly have like a large repository of wee small Steve stories. I haven't had that interesting of a life. I remember it's not a holiday story, but for some reason, as I was trying to think of just something to talk about in response to the question, and I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this in a video or during a podcast or a conversation, or maybe even one of these live streams at some point before. And it's not holiday related, but it's a wee small Steve thing. So hopefully this is good enough. But I used to think when I was very little, when I was maybe 4 or 5, I used to think that I had the ability to travel from my grandparents' house to my parents' house, to my house where I actually lived, by like stepping through a portal. Like I thought that I could conjure like a portal, and I would be at Granny's house here where I'm at now, actually. And I could step through into my bedroom at home, and then I would just be there. And I used to, for a certain period of my young life, I actually believed that I was able to do this. And I think what it was I was just having dreams. Like I would just have a dream. In the dream, I would be at Granny's house, and I would, step through the portal to my house in Clear Spring. And then when I woke up, I would be there, and I'd be like, oh, I magically transported myself, but it was just a dream. But they were apparent. They were very vivid dreams, I guess, or at least very convincing to my young mind, because there was a time when I actually believed I was doing that. But I'm about 85% sure that I wasn't, and it was actually just me having a dream. So there's my wee small Steve show. It's the best I can do. Michael Ridra says, I worry sometimes about whether I'm being a good leftist. I don't expect to agree with every leftist, but sometimes I wonder if things I disagree with are just because it'd be inconvenient for me to agree with. For example, a leftist recently told me that celebrating Thanksgiving in any form is bad, even if I just want to enjoy the paid day off and have a nice meal with some family and friends. Another example, a leftist I had asked for feedback on my novel said he wasn't going to read it after I described it because it has elves and androids and such in it, and how any use of elves, aliens, anthropomorphic animals, etc. is inherently racist. I know you've had similar complaints about aliens in Star Trek before. I give more examples, but I don't have enough characters. I'm willing to think on these points, but in the end, they seem like missing the forest for the trees. But also, it makes my life easier to come to that conclusion. Do you ever struggle with this? I was curious on your thoughts. I would not use the word struggle. I would use the word It's not something I spend a lot of time on or that I worry about very much, but it is something that I have had occasion to think about. Yeah, and I think your attitude is probably my attitude as well. You don't want to just immediately shut those criticisms out and say, "Oh, that's ridiculous, fuck off." I think you want to be open to those ideas, and you want to be, um, you want to be willing to hear people out and to understand why they think something like that. Like if someone says, "Yeah, you shouldn't celebrate Thanksgiving because of its, racist origins and because it's tied to the Pilgrims and the subjugation of Native Americans, and it, has all of this unsavory history to it." Like, I think we need to be willing to hear that out and to take that in and to understand that there is legitimacy to that. Like there's a core of truth to that, but at the same time to say, okay, but while recognizing the truth in that and taking that seriously, we also need to be not only realistic, but also acknowledge that it's been hundreds of years since that happened. And, we don't have the luxury of just starting over. And yes, there are some traditions we should probably abandon or change and recontextualize or whatever, but it's not that simple as saying, well, we just won't do Thanksgiving anymore. It's not as simple as saying, well, because there have been a lot of racist usages of fantasy characters and aliens and etc., which again is true. Like fantasy characters have been used in racist ways, have been used to represent, other like real groups of people and to racialize them and to denigrate them or to exoticize them or otherize them in other ways. And that's real. That's true. That's a valid thing to be concerned about. But I, like you, believe that it is not only going too far, but also not really doing any good to just say, well, no more, no more elves, no more aliens, no more talking animals, period. And I refuse to read or engage with any story written by anybody for any reason that uses those things because they have, racist histories or whatever. I think that's going too far. And I think it's too absolutist. And I think absolutist thinking in any form is a bad idea, whether you're coming at it from the left or the right or from any direction. You need to be able to be thoughtful, to consider things on a case by case basis, to come to your own decisions. And yes, your own comfort is a factor there. And I do think we also need to be aware, like, am I coming to this conclusion because I think it's the best thing or the right thing? Or am I coming to this conclusion because it's the easiest thing for me? Like we need to be aware of that, because that is also something that plays a part. And we don't want, I assume most of us, we don't want to be the kind of people that allow our choices and our priorities to be unduly influenced by what is most comfortable or what is easiest for us. So we need to be aware of that too. It's complicated and it's hard. And that's why, easy absolutist solutions like, well, I'm not going to read anything that has, talking animals in it because there's a history of talking animals being used as racist tropes. That's an easy solution to a complex problem. And that's why I think it's a bad solution. So yeah, those are my thoughts. And it gets a really good question. Russell, good afternoon, Steve. I trust you are well. I fell asleep the last 2 weeks on your question, which I will get back to, but I feel like if I prolong my Trek question, I may forget it altogether. Please forgive me, as this might take 2 or 3 Q&As for the full Q&A. So here goes. You could probably fit more of it. You wouldn't have to do 2 or 3 questions if you would just cut out the preamble and just go straight to the question. Like, I mean, you don't need to tell me you don't need to tell me the story of the question before you ask the question. But anyway, you're not here for me to criticize you. You're here for me to answer your question. So, I'm paraphrasing because I could find the actual essay on top, which I have a copy of. But according to this person, TOS had the luxury of being the founding father and playing it safe. TNG was during peace times and can handle the harder subjects, as Picard was more of the diplomat. DS9 regressed, and Voyager tried to copy TOS without success. Again, paraphrasing this person's interpretations. So my question to you is, what do you think? My opinion, which I need to break down through the course of a few Q&As, is I do disagree with her comment on DS9, and I think I'm going to start there. Nothing is more clear than when Sisko mentions to Kira the difference between living in paradise, etc. Your thoughts? I'm not really sure exactly what you're asking. I mean, is the person who wrote this article you're referencing saying that when they say TNG was during peacetime, is that peacetime in the real world, or is that peacetime in the Star Trek universe? Because DS9 was produced during, at least for the United States, during relatively peaceful times. I mean, it wasn't peaceful for everywhere in the world, but for the United States, it was relatively peaceful during the production of DS9 and most of the production of Voyager as well. So I don't see why that would have made those shows different. And also in terms of the way, like, handling harder subjects, in terms of like handling, you know, social and political issues, if anything, DS9 was more willing to take issues like that head on. I mean, TNG had a lot of episodes that you know, tackled social issues, but I mean, Deep Space Nine was the first Star Trek series to do episodes that were just frankly about racism. You know, like not as they didn't do an allegory. Like it was, they did episode like Far Beyond the Stars, where it was literally about racism. There was no science fiction separation. It wasn't like, well, it's about racism, but instead of black people, it's these aliens, and instead of white people, it's these aliens. Like, no, they did an episode that was just literally out and out, no interpretation needed. This is about racism, right? So I don't see how you could say Deep Space Nine regressed in that way. You know, TNG did episodes that dealt with racism and dealt with other kinds of prejudice, but always through the metaphor of science fiction. And Deep Space Nine, that's usually what Deep Space Nine did as well, but they also would, you know, occasionally just drop the facade and say, fuck it, this is about racism. So, you know, and I wouldn't say Voyager tried to copy TOS. I would say Voyager, if anything, Voyager copied TNG. I don't watch many Voyager episodes and say, oh, they're obviously going for a TOS vibe here. Voyager was an attempt to redo TNG. Again, assuming I'm understanding the question correctly. But yeah, and I also would not say that TOS played it safe. Like in any respect, I don't see classic Trek as playing it safe, especially not in terms of its political messages. But you know, but again, like I may not be interpreting the question properly. So after I'm done with everything, if you want to clarify in the you know, in the chat, I would be happy to hear what you have to say. But at the moment, those are my thoughts. All right, Brian the Brain Baker, lots to talk about and lots on my mind. But my question today is simple. Why did you gravitate to DC and not Marvel when you started reading comics? And who is your favorite comic book character of all time? Favorite comic book character of all time. I realize it may seem strange to say this while wearing a Max Fleischer Superman shirt, but favorite comic character of all time is Batman. It's Batman. It's my favorite comic book character of all time. And why did I gravitate toward DC instead of Marvel? I think a lot of it was just I found DC first, or DC found me. You know, my earliest comic book superhero related memories are having to do with DC characters, with Superman and Batman and their related supporting casts. I think the first superhero anything that I ever saw was probably one of the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, was probably the first Christopher Reeve Superman movie, or like, one of the Super Friends cartoons on Saturday morning. So I mean, DC was the first one that I saw, and I really imprinted on it. And I've always loved Superman and loved Batman. And that's the one that's in my bones, And again, like, I love Marvel too. Like, I love Spider-Man, and I have loved the Marvel Cinematic Universe in general. Like, I haven't thought every single movie is a masterpiece, but as a complete enterprise, I am a fan of it and have enjoyed it. Um, but DC is what's in my bones, and I think it's because that was the first one. I found Batman and Superman before I found any of the others, and they've just been with me the longest, and they're the ones that I feel the closest to and that mean the most to me. So, a twist of fate, a simple twist of fate, as Bob Dylan would say. And finally, last question from the patrons and the members, from Joe McClory, who says, so I was recently playing a conversational game with my family at Thanksgiving. Just say truth or dare. I don't know if it was truth or dare or not. And I shared a very vulnerable story that after a few times of adding it to this question, then deleting it, I have decided against sharing here. Anyway, the question: what is the most vulnerable thing you are willing to share on the internet? I wish I had a specific answer I could give you, but I can't think of anything. I don't, it's sort of like Dana asking earlier, like, tell a story about Wee Small Steve. Like, I don't have that many. And I'm sure there are vulnerable things about me that I could say, or that I could share, or that I would be willing to share at least. But I can't think of any. I don't have a quiver full of arrows of that. I don't have a bunch of vulnerable things to reveal just at the ready. My brain just doesn't work that way. I would say in general, just as long as it wasn't something that would be compromising to another person or would require me to break any sort of confidence with another person, there's not much that I can think of about myself or about my life that I wouldn't be willing to share, if there was the occasion for it, if somebody asked, or if I needed to share it for, to make a point in a video or to tell a story or whatever. I can't think of anything that I'd be like, oh God, I hope nobody ever finds out about that, again, unless it's something that would be, compromising to somebody else or would be breaking a trust. But for the most part, other than stuff like that, I feel like I'm pretty much an open book, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Like, oh, this is the most vulnerable. I can't think of anything. So I wish I wish I could think of something or tell you what it is, but I can't. So I guess we're even. I mean, or we're sort of even, because you had something that you could have shared and you chose not to. And I can't think of anything that I would share even if you wanted me to. So sorry. That's the last of the patron and member questions. Now it is almost time for me to turn my attention to the live chat and hang out with you folks for the rest of the show. But first, it's time for a Stuffy and Friends short. Now, this is kind of like Stuffy Week, because yesterday, being Turkey Day, was the premiere of the 2023 Stuffy and Friends Turkey Day special, where myself and Stuffy and Jack McPherson watched a cheesy old movie and riffed it Mystery Science Theater style. That video is up on the channel as we speak. If you have not watched the Stuffy and Friends Turkey Day special, I would encourage you to do so. It's about an hour long, so it's an hour out of your day if you have time to watch it. But I'm very pleased with how it turned out. I'm very proud of it. The Stuffy Turkey Day videos are usually my favorite videos that I do every year. I look forward to doing them every year, even though they're a lot of work, because I love the way they turn out. And I'm a big Mystery Science Theater fan, and it's cool to be able to do my own humble imitation of Mystery Science Theater. So anyway, if you haven't watched it, I would encourage you to check it out at some point if you have the time. But instead of taking an hour out of your time, I'm just going to take 1 minute out of your time coming up here in a second, because it's time for a short as well. Not just the Turkey Day special yesterday, but a brand new Stuffy and Friends short coming at you right now. Check it out. What should the laws be?
What are we talking about?
I saw that President Biden is trailing in the polls, so I'm writing him a letter to tell him what the laws should be so he can make better laws and get popular and win the election next year, and I'd like your input.
Oh, well, if you're just asking for a wish list, I'd suggest codifying the right to an abortion and instituting strong civil rights protections for trans people and strengthening federal gun laws.
Right. I've got that stuff already. That's the basics. Get creative. Other than that stuff, what should the laws be?
Some form of universal basic income?
Oh, yes! That is a great idea. I'm going to put that at the top of my list.
Out of curiosity, what was at the top of your list before I said that?
All those who play football on a baseball field shall be killed.
That's your number one suggestion?
Well, now it's number 2.
I totally agree.
He sure told me, didn't he? All right, that was the brand new Stuffy short. And of course, as always, that will go up on the channel tomorrow as a standalone YouTube short. But because you all are watching the Ask Away live stream, you got to see it first and in full 16:9 format. So anyway, hi, everybody. Me no other says, when Disney buys DC, we will see crossovers. Oh, I'm sure that's all we'll see. That's all we'll see. Okay. Super chat from John Burns. Thank you very much, my friend. John says, Thanksgiving in Canada is older and has nothing to do with the Pilgrims. Traditions included indigenous. The French didn't fear indigenous like USA. I don't know a lot about it, but Canadian Thanksgiving, just the impression I get is that it is a lot less politically fraught than American Thanksgiving. Some random geek. Stuffy is all for murder. Yeah, it's the dark side of Stuffy. Super chat from Isaiah Taylor. Thank you, my friend. Strange Star Trek TNG moment last night. Got drunk off of red wine during a Friendsgiving event and barely made it through the Masterpiece Society before crashing on the sack. Any strange Star Trek stories? I can honestly say no. I have no strange Star Trek stories. No, I can't think. At least not that I can think of. And is getting drunk and falling asleep in the middle of or barely making it through an episode? Is that a strange Star Trek story? I mean, if you're going to fall asleep during a TNG episode, the Masterpiece Society is a pretty good one because it's not, it's not a bad episode, but it's not like you fell asleep during, Tapestry or Measure of a Man or something. Oh, Stephen, this is great. Stephen G. Glenn with a member message. According to my sources, Ed Begley Jr. would like to bury the hatchet and share a gyro and sherbet in the foyer. Or, alternatively, share a gyro and a sherbet in the foyer. Or perhaps there are even more pronunciations of those words that other people could favor us with. But yes. Hollywood. The Hollywood sign is proof of the Nephilim. What about the stadiums that used to be both football and baseball stadiums? Well, they should all be demolished, for they are abominations. They are mockeries of God's plan. They should be utterly obliterated from the face of the earth. Yeah, John, I'm aware of that. Columbus Day is Thanksgiving, or Thanksgiving is Columbus Day or whatever. So there's a Columbus connection, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, Me No Other says every Spider-Man show is now on Disney Plus. I noticed that. I noticed the sudden influx of Spider-Man content on Disney Plus. I may have to make myself available to that. Brian Baker says, have you seen the Columbo episode with Leonard Nimoy, and what did you think of it if you did? I am aware of that episode's existence, but I don't believe I've ever watched it. So I can't give I can't give an opinion on it. Gyro. Yes, Stephen, it could be, yes. Not gyro, 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 which is gyro like the more acceptable sort of Greek pronunciation, a hero. Boxy Brown says, I like to fall asleep to the defector. That's a good episode. I like that episode. That's the one I can never remember his name. But the guy who plays Admiral Jirok, who has he also played Odo's adopted dad on Deep Space Nine, Dr. Mora. And I think he was a Klingon in an episode, and he was in a couple of episodes of MacGyver as well. And I can never think of his name. But he's great. He's one of those guys that he pops up in something, especially the voice. He has a distinctive face, but he has a very distinctive voice. You hear him talk and you're like, it's that guy. And his name is right on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it. And John, also the super chat. Thank you for the super chats, John. I was born a day before a piece of the action was shown. Well, that is auspicious. That is auspicious and a fun episode. So, okay, 25580. Sorry, I missed your previous comment. 25580 says, I have a good holiday story. I used to horse ride, and once I got a riding drop, I guess that's crop, for Christmas. And then hang on, let me switch from live chat. Let me switch to live chat and see if I can see. I decided it'd be funny to hit my big brother's ass with it, but I accidentally hit his balls. Our dad had to stand over me when he pushed me to the ground with the intent of beating me up. Oh, hey, Precambrian Lullaby. I'm not sure who's kowtowing to neocons. Oh, Warren, okay, so would that be sabotage versus sabotage? So it's the Shatner pronunciation or the everybody else pronunciation versus the Shatner pronunciation? You say sabotage. I say sabotage. James Sloyan, thank you, Philip. James Sloyan. Yes, great actor. Great actor. Dana, Batman is your favorite, not Nightwing? Yes. Well, here's the thing. I love Nightwing, but when someone says, who's your favorite superhero? I always sort of interpret that as, one of the big guys, like one of the major ones, one of the headliners, right? Nightwing, I love Nightwing, and I may in fact like Nightwing as a character more than Batman. But Nightwing is not a headliner. You know what I mean? Like if the average person says, what's your favorite superhero? And you say Nightwing, they're going to be like, who the fuck is that? Because he's not a headliner. They're asking for a headliner. They're asking, well, no, come on, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, one of the X-Men. I mean, and one of the varsity X-Men, not one of the ones, that were in it for a couple years when somebody wrote it back in 1987. But one of, Storm, Cyclops, Wolverine, one of the big ones, So in that sense, I always say Batman. Oh, and okay, John, Canadian Thanksgiving has nothing to do with Columbus. Well, good for you. Isaiah says, or best of both worlds. My B-day is tomorrow. I was born in 1992, and I share a birth week with Miley Cyrus. Hers is the 23rd and me the 25th. Well, there you go. I mean, I guess falling asleep during best of both worlds is acceptable because we've all probably seen it about 1 million times. Steven, that's the best Shatner pronunciation. Telekinesis. They can move objects through telekinesis. Telekinesis is my Shatner, my Shatner calibration word when I need to get into the voice of doing a Shatner impression. Such as it is, I'm not saying my Shatner impression is great, but when I need to find that rhythm and that voice, that's how I get into it. Telekinesis. Once you pronounce telekinesis in the Shatnerian manner, it's easy to get into the rhythm of the man's speech. Steve Schmeling says, about your celeb promos, shouldn't your background be a solid primary color with your logo tiny and top center? Yeah, I suppose if I was going to be super on the nose with it, yeah. But I wanted to. I had some cool, multicolored backgrounds that I wanted to use for those, so I used those instead. No, 255, that was funny. And Dana, I don't know why you're. I'm not sure why you're crying. Is it because I said Batman instead of Nightwing? Okay, Daryl asks, what was your Thanksgiving dinner? Mine was 8 courses. 1, Colby Jack cheese. 2, cola. 3, mixed veggies. 4 and 5, ham and sausage gravy. 6, hot cocoa. 7, grapes. 8, Boston cream pie. Woohoo, boy. Okay, what all did we have? There was Cornish game hens for the meat. There was stuffing. There was mashed potatoes. There was candied sweet potatoes. Oh, there was corn, scallop potatoes, macaroni and cheese, and I had an iced tea to drink if we're counting drinks, and then pumpkin pie with whipped cream and coffee. So that's 10. That's 10 different things, 10 different items. I wouldn't say each one is an individual course, but 10 different items. Mina Weather says, I wonder if stores lowered prices for Thanksgiving to sell more Turkey Day food. They did lower prices of eggs for Easter. Makes you wonder if inflation is a scam and really greedflation. I don't know, actually. And are we talking about like, yeah, it's Philip J says, I love Dick. Lots of people do. He and Damian are my fave Batman and Robin together. And then Dana says, Philip, I'm a Dick and Tim. Tim is my favorite Robin. Dick is, I would prefer, I think Dick is a better overall character. But I prefer Dick as Nightwing and Tim as Robin and Bruce as Batman. Like that's my ideal, arrangement of those characters. I mean, Prodigal was a really good storyline back in the 90s when it was Dick as Batman and Tim as Robin. And I have not read the Grant Morrison run from several years back where Dick was Batman and Damian was Robin. I have not read that. I am not generally a fan. I just don't like the idea of the Damian Wayne character. I just feel like with Robin, they just should have stopped at Tim because they got it right. Like Tim was the perfect Robin, and why are we still adding Robins at this point? We got one. We got a good one. Just leave it at that. Kane20C says, who would win in a fight, a turkey or a peacock? Both are known to be vicious. I don't know. Is a peacock bigger than a turkey? Or is it all feathers? I don't know. If they're about the same size, I might go with a turkey. I feel like a turkey would be more of a street fighter. A peacock is a little too fancy. Homebody says, could Captain Kirk have talked the Borg into destruction, or would their bio components prevent this? Yeah, I think that's really the hitch in the plan. I feel like if the Borg were just artificial intelligence, then I think Kirk could defeat them. Although, having said that, now remember, in Borg, the plan to destroy them, like the genocide plan, before Captain Picard decided, let's not do a genocide, that virus that Geordi and Data were going to introduce into the collective through Hugh's memory banks was meant to be a paradox, was a visual paradox. It was a supposedly a shape that could not possibly exist in 3 dimensions. And like by analyzing and overanalyzing the shape, it would eventually cause a full Borg collective systems shutdown. And maybe, that seems like the visual equivalent of what Kirk always did. So, maybe Kirk could, maybe Kirk could do it by talking them into it. Joe, see, I don't know. I mean, let's remember, Joe says Dick was a mid-Robin. He didn't come into his own till he was Nightwing. I mean, let's remember that Dick was Robin for like 30 years. You know, I mean, 40 years. I mean, he was Robin from 1940 until the early 80s when they brought Jason in. And I think Dick was a great Robin. And I think there are some fantastic like golden and silver age Batman and Robin stories where Dick is Robin. I think Dick was a fantastic Robin. I certainly wouldn't say he was a mid Robin, but I do prefer him as Nightwing. I do think allowing him to grow up and become an adult and, you know, continue being a superhero, but with a new identity and, you know, sort of a different phase in his life. I do think that deepened his character and made him a better character and certainly a richer character. And yeah, I think Tim was a great Robin. So, I mean, I definitely agree that Dick is better as Nightwing and that Tim is better as in the Robin role. But I mean, Dick as Robin was fantastic. Yeah, Philip, it seems like the trend over the last 15 or 20 years in Batman comics seems to have been whenever they run out of ideas, just add another Robin, which you know, like, no, don't do that. You can't just keep adding Robins. Not every new writer gets a Robin, okay? You know? 225 AD says, how do you feel about the DAU making Batman's biological son? You mean the DCAU, like the animated stuff, and making Robin Batman's biological son? Which I guess is referring to Damian. Yeah, I mean, I'm just not. I don't necessarily have a problem with Batman having a biological son. I mean, I think it depends on the story, but my main objection to Damian is that we've already got Tim, and Tim is a perfect Robin. So why are we adding Robins when we don't need them? You know, like it really doesn't get any more. But I don't have a problem, like in principle, with Batman having a biological child, or with even Batman having a biological child who becomes Robin. I just don't think you need it, because before that there was already a perfect Robin, and it was Tim. Super chat from Cast Iron Chaos says, why not use the talking time donut to erase the Borg and Cardassians before they unalive us? Well, because you would be erasing vast swaths of history. And you're supposed to use the talking time donut to put things back the way they were. After Dr. McCoy uses the talking time donut to fuck things up. See, when you use the talking time donut to change things, it fucks things up. So then you have to use the talking time donut to change things back. Oh, 255 AD, Batman Beyond. I've never watched Batman Beyond. I have no opinion on Batman Beyond. But yeah, you don't use the talking time donut to arbitrarily change history. You use the talking time donut to change history back when someone else uses the talking time donut to change history. John Burns with another super chat says, Section 31 is good as it's the CIA, right? I mean, I guess that depends on your opinion of the CIA. I think Section 31 is usually depicted as morally ambiguous at best. I don't think we're meant to think of Section 31 as being good. We're meant to think of Section 31 as being a product of the fact that it is a complicated universe. So no, I wouldn't say Section 31 is good. Yeah, Joe. Yeah, genocide is never the right answer, even if the people you're doing it against are bad, and even if you're doing it with a talking time donut. You know, so you're not like carrying out a war to kill billions of people. You're just going back in time to prevent the billions of people from existing in the first place. Like that's, you know, first of all, that's cheating, and second of all, yeah, it's still kind of a genocide. John Burns says, some random geek first. Some random geek, how many coups has Section 31 backed? I have no idea, but it's got to be a lot, right? John Burns with a super chat says the talking time donut is semi-sentient, right? Well, I actually, according to Star Trek Discovery, the talking time donut seems entirely sentient. The talking time donut it appears in Discovery as a person. So, yeah, I think it's beyond semi-sentient. It's just flat out sentient. Oh, Kane 20C, this is a good question. We all know that Steve Johnson loves a roast beef sandwich, but what is their second favorite sandwich? Interesting. What would now Lieutenant Johnson's backup be if he couldn't get the roast beef sandwich, but he wanted to have a shower sandwich? Or maybe maybe his second favorite is his non-shower sandwich. What would that be? What is Steve Johnson's second favorite sandwich after a roast beef sandwich? Would it be another meat sandwich? Would it be like a turkey sandwich or a cold cut? Or would it be something completely different, like a peanut butter sandwich? I was going to say a Reuben, but a Reuben is corned beef. And that's, different than roast beef, but in the same sort of category. Maybe a BLT. Maybe Ensign or Lieutenant Johnson would like a nice BLT if he couldn't get a roast beef. Yeah, Steve Schmally, I think that's the best way to think about Section 31. Section 31 would be a necessary evil. And I think that's certainly how Sloan would describe it in Deep Space Nine. Oh, Michael, semi-random question inspired by yesterday. What is the best dessert? Ooh, the best dessert. I said, God, how can you pick one? How can you pick one? Personally, I like a nice piece of red velvet cake. But, like a brownie with some ice cream on top, like a brownie sundae, a nice warm chocolate brownie with some vanilla ice cream on top and then some chocolate syrup on top of that. That's hard to top. A nice slice of pie, pumpkin pie, apple pie. I like a nice berry pie myself, like a mixed berry pie, like cranberry and blackberry maybe. Oh, so good. I don't know. How do you pick one? Oh, Kane 20C says tiramisu. Boxy Brown says ice cream. Brian says coconut cream pie. Oh, good night, Dana. Glad you could be here. Rachel says pecan pie. Yeah, see, there are so many. There are so. Stephen G. Clint, I just saw it. Maybe he'd like a knuckle sandwich. Maybe like what kind? Like pig knuckle. That might be good. Yeah. But yeah, it's like, how do you pick best dessert? Like I can say, like I think my favorite is probably a good slice of red velvet cake. But there's so many options. Like I wouldn't want to. I don't want to close any doors. You know what I'm saying? Ooh, brownies, corner piece or center? Ooh, damn. I would say center. Corner piece is good too, because usually the corner piece has a little bit of crunch to it. It's a little harder because it was against the pan. But center, you get the full soft brownie. I think with a brownie, I'd prefer the center piece, but I would certainly not turn my nose up at a side piece or a corner piece at all. Yeah, a good brownie. Oh boy. Boxy Brown, has anyone tried birthday cake flavor magic shell? I never have. No, I haven't even had just traditional chocolate magic shell for years. I didn't even know they had birthday cake flavor. Ooh, butterscotch brownies. Now that's good. Butterscotch. That's a good flavor. I love butterscotch ice cream. Oh man. I've got a hankering for dessert. I do have some pumpkin pie in the fridge. I'm definitely going to be having a piece of that after this stream is over, especially now that we've been talking about dessert. Brian, I don't know if I'm going to watch the Doctor Who special this weekend or not. I've been catching up on Doctor Who for the last week or so, but I'm so far behind. I'm just now getting started with series 3, of the revival, like the second David Tennant season is where I'm at. I just watched the Shakespeare episode like earlier today, so I'm like way behind. So I may just wait until I catch up and then watch the 60th anniversary special or specials, because I think they're doing, David Tennant came back to do 3 of them. I think I may wait and just watch those after I get to that point in the series instead of watching them this weekend. Oh, Steve, that's a good point. Corners make a good handle for dipping in milk. Yes, if you are someone who likes to dip your brownies, I suppose it is easier to have a firm corner to hold to. John asks, so the talking time donut can say no, like Captain Shaw. I suppose if the talking time donut didn't want to send someone back in time, they could just refuse to. Yeah, I guess. We've never seen it work that way. But even in City on the Edge of Forever, it seemed like, it activated because somebody asked a question, and it seemed to have some kind of will of its own. So I guess, yeah, if it didn't want to let you go back, it could just not let you go back, I assume. And I mean, the real answer is it would do whatever the fuck it had to do in the story. Like, if I was writing a Star Trek episode and for my episode to make sense, the talking time donut would have to be able to refuse service to people, then that's what the fuck it would do, because I'm the one making it up. Oh, Gary has a good question. I was wondering if Superman ever used his X-ray vision to help out in a difficult surgery for the doctor. I can't think of a specific example of that, but I would be very surprised if there is not a Superman story somewhere in the 80 years of comics where something like that did not happen. But I can't think of a specific example. The Hollywood sign as proof of the Nephilim says, have you issued an apology for loaning your voice to Andrew Wilson in his debate with Matt Dillahunty? I don't get that reference, but I guess, does Andrew Wilson sound like me? Is that what that's a reference to? I honestly, I have no idea what that's in reference to, so I don't get that reference, unfortunately. Okay, so here's a promo request. Pam Hadfield. I watched the very first episode of Doctor Who live in 1963. That's cool. That's really cool. Steve says, will you do a promo calling out who took the last brownie? Yeah, Mike, I saw the widget was broken. I fixed it. Sorry about that. I don't know why I did that, but whatever. Okay, so Steve Schmeling says, a promo calling out who took the last brownie. Okay, well, who took the last brownie? Give me suggestions in the chat for who took the last brownie, and then I will cut a promo on whoever that is. And Boxy Brown, I can't think of a specific instance of a story where he can't turn off his X-ray vision, but in the episode of Smallville, when Clark first develops his X-ray vision, he does have a hard time controlling it, so it is a little bit involuntary until he gets the hang of it. Oh, okay. See, okay, I would say Donald Trump Jr., Brian, but I did a Donald Trump Jr. promo in the video. So I'm going to go, and Geek was the first one to drop into the chat. So I'm going to go with Geek's suggestion and say that the Ultimate Warrior took the last brownie. Although, I mean, if Dana was here, I would totally, if Dana was still here, I would totally cut a promo on Dana for taking the last brownie, because that's absolutely a Dana move. She would take the last brownie. Even if I said, boy, I can't wait to have that last brownie, Dana would run right out to the kitchen and get it. Anyway, and Brian, yeah, I think I will watch the Monk movie. Yeah. I was a fan of Monk. I'll probably watch the Mr. Monk's Last Case when it comes out. Okay. The Ultimate Warrior took the last brownie. Okay. Imagine my surprise. Imagine my surprise when I open the refrigerator to get a nice tall glass of milk, and then I look over to the countertop and I pull back the lid of the Tupperware box there, and I'm thinking I'm gonna have myself that last brownie that I've been saving, waiting for all day. I've already got my milk poured, I've got my little plate. I'm gonna get the brownie, and I open the Tupperware thing, and the brownie is gone. And I turn around and I say to the other guys, I say, who took the last brownie? What happened to the last brownie that I was saving for myself here? You know what they did? I'll tell you what they did, Ultimate Warrior. They stooged you out. I guess maybe you thought you could trust everybody else around here, but they hate your guts just as much as I do. And they knew that you took the last brownie, and as soon as they had a chance to tell me that it was you, they told me. And now you're going to pay, because that was my brownie. I was saving it, and everybody knew it, and everybody here respected it. Everybody here respected me, and I thought you respected me too, Warrior, but I guess you don't. I guess you think that this is your playground. I guess you think that you can just go around and drink people's milk and eat people's brownies and have no repercussions. Well, that's not the way it is, and you're fixing to find out, Warrior, this weekend at the Survivor Series. You and me, grudge match. Who took the last brownie? You did. Well, you can have the brownie, Warrior. I don't want it anymore. It's yours. I can't have the brownie, but I'm going to have something else. I'm going to have satisfaction. And maybe I can't have that brownie I wanted, but I'm damn sure going to take a piece of your ass. You're going to wish that there'd been steroids in that brownie, Warrior. You would have needed them to stand up to me, because I'm running on fuel of nothing but rage. Rage and fury and a lust for revenge. And it's going to run you over, Ultimate Warrior, this weekend. You're going to rue the day you ate my brownie. Okay. So there you go. Ooh, Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon ate my brownie. Steve Schmeling says, you need a Mean Gene Okerlund to scream at while he looks like he wants to be somewhere else. Mean Gene, man. My favorite Mean Gene move would be when he's interviewing one of the heels, and the heel would say something kind of like off color or outrageous, and Gene would go like, oh, like he was just so offended. You know, his sense of propriety had been, just had been crossed. And he was, oh, I can't believe you said that. John Bird says, I want Christopher Walken to voice the talking time donut. I mean, Christopher Walken doing a voice for anybody would be great. If I could do a Walken impression, I would love to do, oh, Joe, that's awesome. Hungry for brownies, lusting for revenge. Yes. That would be the tagline to promote our match, hungry for brownies, lusting for revenge. And yes, Brian, absolutely. Rest in peace to Rosalind Carter, for sure. For sure. Yeah, Mean Gene was great. Mean Gene was the best person to ever do his job. Like, he was the absolute greatest backstage interviewer in the history of professional wrestling. I mean, he was always utterly himself. Like, he had his own personality. He was over just, as himself. He always knew just what to say. He had a certain, he was classy, but he was also silly and kind of cartoonish and sort of fit within that context of like 1980s and early 90s WWF. And, yeah, he was perfect. Like, he was perfect in that role. Nobody who has done that, since has done it as well as Mean Gene has. And there have been other people who have done a good job at it. I mean, Gene's not the only one who was ever any good at it. There's been lots of good backstage interviewers over the years, but I mean, Mean Gene was the greatest. John Burns, did Ricky Steamboat ever lose to HBK? Did Ricky Steamboat and HBK ever even wrestle? I guess maybe they would have. I guess they might have crossed paths in 91 when Ricky was there as the Dragon. But other than that, I can't think of a time when HBK and of course that was before Shawn Michaels was HBK. Like, he was still a babyface in the Rockers at that point, because he didn't turn heel until 92, I don't think. Or maybe it was late 91. I think he turned heel in late 91. But Ricky wasn't there for that long. Like, he came back to the WWF in 91, and then by 92, he was back in WCW again. I don't think HBK and Ricky ever fought. On TV anyway, not in any sort of significant match. And And no, it wouldn't have been a sure sign of racism to have Ricky Steamboat do a job to HBK. Brian, yeah, Gordon Soley was great. I think Gordon Soley was probably the best play-by-play guy. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people my age would default to Jim Ross, and Jim Ross, when he was Jim Ross in his prime, was brilliant, and is a completely valid choice for greatest play-by-play person in wrestling history. But I have always thought that that Gordon Soley was the best. Okay, Stephen, you want me to cut a promo on Rosalind Carter for a fight in the vacant lot behind the 7-Eleven because they farted and blamed it on the dog. Okay. All right, here we go. With all due respect to Rosalind Carter, rest in peace. It's just a bit. Well, first of all, okay, Michael Hanline says, do you think you'll do more MST3K stuff like your Turkey Day special on days other than Turkey Day? I would like to. I don't have any specific plans, but yes, I would like to because I love doing that. It's just a matter of finding the time to do it, because doing those videos is the process of writing those videos is very time consuming. But yes, I would love to do more videos like that other than just on Turkey Day. Okay. Rosalind Carter, parking lot behind the 7-Eleven because she farted and blamed it on the dog. No, it is too soon, but that's why it's funny, Stephen. It is too soon, but that's why it's funny. Okay. You know, I never thought I'd be standing here saying that I was going to do the world a favor by ending Rosalind Carter, but I feel like I'm in that situation now. We all were taken aback. We all were saddened. We all mourned the passing of a great woman and a great first lady a few days ago, and we thought, well, it's time to move on. You know, it's time to dry our tears and pay our respects and then get on with life like Rosalind Carter would want us to do. But then what happened? Unprecedented. Never saw this coming in a million years. Rosalind Carter rises from the dead, comes back as a zombie. Not just any zombie, an incredibly flatulent zombie. And not just a flatulent zombie. Here's the shame of it. Here's the part that breaks my heart, because it's beneath the dignity of a great woman who lived a great life, but she came back as a zombie for reasons that are still not clear. She farted all over the place, and then when people called her out on it, when people outside the 7-Eleven walked outside and smelled the air, caught the whiff of it, and said, oh my God, zombie Rosalind Carter, was that you? You couldn't even take responsibility for it, could you, zombie Rosalind Carter? You turned with your decrepit, undead finger and you pointed at that poor innocent little stray dog over there in the corner of the parking lot, didn't you? You tried to pass off the blame for your passing gas onto that dog that had nothing to do with it. I'm sure that dog has farted a time or two in its life, but it wasn't this one. This fart was yours, Rosalind Carter zombie. And now I'm going to do the world a favor, because you and me have a date coming up in that very same 7-Eleven parking lot. It's going to be me and you squaring off one-on-one, winner take all. And I'm not just going to pin you, zombie Rosalind Carter. I'm not just going to make you submit, Rosalind Carter zombie. I'm going to put you down. And this time, zombie or not, you won't get back up. Okay. There we go. I made her a zombie because it's more acceptable that way. Because she's, that way, like, her life is already over, but then she's been resurrected through some unholy, unnatural means. So I'm doing her a favor by putting her zombie down. Not just getting revenge for the fart and the dishonest attempt to blame the dog, but I'm also I'm allowing her to, to finally go to rest. So I feel like that, And I realize, and Stephen, I apologize for going beyond your prompt. I added the zombie thing myself, but I felt like that was I felt like making Rosalind Carter a zombie for the wrestling match that I was promoting was the most tasteful way to do it. So, and I stand behind that decision. Hollywood sign says gonna crush zombie Ros Carter like the Titan sub. Oh God. Cut a promo on Graham Linehan for becoming a huge transphobe. Yeah, really. Because you know what really sucks about that? I saw him. I went back and watched Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, and which is a brilliant show. Like, it's just a brilliant show. But he shows up in that, and I had forgotten that he was in it. And he's not in it a lot. He just pops up as like a security guard in 2 episodes. But he popped up, and I was like, oh fuck, there's Graham Linehan, that motherfucker. And it kind of just, I was like, damn it. Because Dark Place is just a masterpiece. And then in the middle, and you know, this was like 2005 or 2006. So it was before he came out as like a massive asshole transphobe. But still, it's like, oh fuck. There's Graham Linehan getting his fucking bullshit all over this. You know what I mean? It sucks. Fuck him. Fuck him. Here's my promo. Hey, Graham Linehan, you're a transphobe. Fuck you. Here's my fucking promo. Cast Iron Chaos, you should have done a comment response video with the comments on your Titan sub video. I guess there were some good ones. I guess there were some good responses to it. Yeah. And yeah, Sean, I mean, I would imagine zombie farts are the most offensive. I mean, you would think, right? Wouldn't you think of all the monsters, zombies would have the worst farts? I would think so. Brian Baker says, did you watch Saturday Night Live when Dan Aykroyd played Jimmy Carter? Remember him talking the caller down from acid? I've seen that sketch. Yeah, I've seen that sketch. I missed it the first time around because I'm pretty sure I wasn't born yet. But I've seen that sketch. Yeah, it's a funny idea. I'm just not a big fan of Dan Aykroyd or Saturday Night Live. But it's a funny idea for a sketch. And it may have elicited a chuckle from me, you know, when it's one of those things where like you laugh at the idea of it, you know, like the joke itself is not brilliant, but just the concept is funny. So you get a little bit of a giggle out of just the concept. Brian, cut promos in the future about people who leave dumb comments on your videos. Oh, there's not enough time. I think I'd rather just, if they leave a bad enough comment, it's easier to just delete the comment. Although again, like if people leave a comment and say, hey, cut a promo on, you know, on this comment and blah, 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 like I would be open to doing that. Brian, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm someone like, my theory is that Saturday Night Live was never really funny. It's just that people remember it as used to be funny because they watch it now and they see that it's not funny, and they remember when they were younger liking it more. So they just sort of assume that it was funny back when they were a kid. And obviously your mileage may vary and it's all a matter of taste. And if you think it's funny, that's great. Like, I'm not going to try to talk you out of it. I mean, it's been on long enough. I'm sure somebody must think it's funny. But like, I used to think, I watched it when I was a teenager and younger than a teenager. Like, I watched it in like the early 90s and through that period. And I thought it was funny then. And then I got away from it for a while. And then I came back to it and watched it a little when I was in my mid to late 20s. And I thought, oh, it was funnier when I was a kid. You know, it's not as funny now. It was funnier back in the day, in the golden years, right? Which for me was the early 90s. And then I went back and rewatched some of those early 90s episodes, and they're not funny either. Like, I feel like with Saturday Night Live, it's never been consistently funny. It's always had its moments. There have always been odd sketches here or there, or particular performers every once in a while, like Kristen Wiig or Will Forte, or, you know, people like that who, or Dana Carvey, who have been able to make it at least funnier than it would be without them, you know. But I don't think the show as a whole has ever been consistently very good. Which is why I don't watch it anymore. I finally said to myself, why am I watching this? I don't think it's funny. I can watch an entire show and not laugh one time. Why the fuck am I watching this? So I don't watch it anymore. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Cast Iron Case. I did a farewell SNL video. Yeah. John, no. Ricky wrestled one match on that WrestleMania, and not in like 2008 or 2009. He wrestled a 6-man at WrestleMania, or yeah, it wasn't even a 6-man. It was 3-on-1 against Chris Jericho, and then he wrestled Chris Jericho in a singles match the month after that. And I think he wrestled a couple of house show matches here and there, like that weren't on TV. But I mean, he was working for the company as a backstage road agent at the time. But he was, yeah, I mean, he was long since retired by that point. Um, yeah, Ricky never had an actual like proper run in WWE after 1991, because he went to WCW full time, and then in 1994 he got hurt and he retired. And again, apart from an odd match here and there in more recent years, that was it. So, um, John, yeah, I watched. I've seen some SCTV. I like SCTV. Yeah, Eddie Murphy, yeah, Boxy Brown. Eddie Murphy may be the best example of like a cast member from SNL who just was just so goddamn funny in his own right that he made the show funny just by being there. And yeah, Brian, I agree with you. Blues Brothers is the best SNL movie. We just watched that recently for late seating, and I was reminded of that. Blues Brothers is by far the best SNL movie. And I'm a big fan of Wayne's World. I think the Wayne's World movies are really funny. But and I think MacGruber is great too. I think the MacGruber movie is hilarious. But yeah, I think Blues Brothers is the best SNL movie. Um, yeah, Hollywood sign. I remember Dana Carvey's heart surgery too. Um, I remember he was doing the cover of People. Like it was one of those things that like just kind of happened, and like you read about it or saw it on TV, and they were like, "Oh, by the way, Dana Carvey had a massive heart attack and just had like a double bypass surgery, and he almost died, but he's okay now." And it was like, "Holy shit, really?" Like I didn't, you find out about it after it's all over with. Like, "Oh my god, seriously? Fuck." Because he was still relatively young when that happened. Um, oh, Brian, with a wrestling question: Are you watching um, Are you watching anything from WWE these days? Yes, I'm back into watching WWE pretty regularly now. I've kind of just thrown up my hands and said fuck it. I watch Raw and SmackDown pretty much every week. Um, SmackDown starts in a few minutes actually, but I'm not going to watch it tonight. I DVR it and I'll watch it tomorrow so I can watch it with breakfast and fast forward through the commercials and stuff. Um, and I'm going to watch Survivor Series tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that. I don't like the WWE version of War Games. I wish if they were going to do War Games that they would do War Games the way it was always done in the old days, where it's it's not pinfall, it's submission only, and the cage has a top on it. Like I'm old school. I think if you're going to do War Games, then do War Games. Um, but and I wish they wouldn't do weapons. That's the thing I hate the most about it. Like it's not just like the cage without a top on it is not ideal, you know, like I wish the cage had a top on it because War Games was part of the concept was it's a steel cage with a top on it so nobody can get out. Um, but what annoys me more than that is like they bring like fucking chairs and kendo sticks, and I hate that weapon shit. I hate fucking garbage wrestling with weapons. It's my least favorite kind of wrestling. I hate it. And they bring that shit into War Games. Like as soon as when it's their turn for their member of the team to go in, like they did this last year with both of them, with the women's War Games and the men's War Games. Like, okay, it's time for Team A to send their next member in, and they come running in with like a fucking chair or a ladder or fuck. It's like, god damn it, you know, just do a fucking match. You're wrestlers. But anyway, but no, yes, to answer your actual question instead of going off on a rant about things about modern pro wrestling that I can't stand. I've been watching WWE fairly regularly, and I also, including NXT, NXT is not nearly as good now as it was when I stopped watching in 2016, but I am enjoying it. I'm getting to know the crop of wrestlers that they have there now, and honestly, on a consistent basis, NXT. And I liked it better when it was 1 hour instead of 2 hours as well. But NXT is probably the WWE show that I enjoy the most, that I watch regularly. So yeah. So I'm watching a fair amount of WWE. And Survivor Series is tomorrow, and it's coming from Chicago, and I have no idea if CM Punk is coming back or not. I'm not expecting it, but I'll probably be wearing a CM Punk t-shirt just in case. But I'm not like going to be sitting there waiting on it. If he doesn't show up, I won't be disappointed, because it would be, like, it would just be a nice bonus if he came back. But I'm not waiting around for it. Anyway, it is almost 8 o'clock, so I'm going to Brian says, yeah, Tony Khan fucked up. Yes, you're right about that. You're right about that, Brian. But which time? Tony's fucked up a lot lately. And Steven, yeah, great question. Why the fuck is there a ladder? If it's not a ladder match, and they have too many of those as well. There's too many actual, like, pre-scheduled ladder matches. But even when it's not a ladder match, like, why is there a ladder under the ring? Yeah. It's not a fan of that whole genre of, like, hardcore garbage. And I never, even back in the Attitude Era, back in the day, like, I was not a fan of it. I was not a fan of it. Anyway, while Geek is putting in the links in the chat, let me go ahead and go through my closing spiel here. Speaking of the charities, don't forget charitylinks.page, which is maintained by Some Random Geek and has all those links that he is putting into the chat right now, plus a few more. If you have a few dollars that you can part with and you want to help somebody out who needs a hand financially, please make use of the links in the chat or charitylinks.page to help out some of our friends in need. We would really appreciate that. If you would like to support what I do here on this channel, you can become a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives, or become a member of the channel by clicking the join button. And if you become a patron or a member at any level of support, one of the benefits that you unlock for yourself is getting to submit questions ahead of time for these Ask Away live streams that I do every other Friday. And those are the questions that I answer in the first part of the show. So if that sounds interesting to you, or if you just want to help me continue to make these videos and produce this channel, I couldn't do it without the support from my patrons and my channel members. So thank you all so much, all of you who are supporters. And if you're thinking about becoming one, thank you for even considering it, for even thinking that my work is worth supporting. But if you want to do that, patreon.com/Steve Shives, or click the join button to become a channel member. Also, in addition to the YouTube stuff, I am a co-host on a couple of podcasts that are a part of the Lemmy Listen family of podcasts. There's Late Seating, the movie review podcast that I co-host along with the great Jason Harding, where we take a look at classic films and see if they deserve their reputation, be it good or bad. And in addition to Late Seating, there's also the Ensign's Log, the Star Trek-themed improv comedy podcast that I'm on with Jason and also with Dana, who was with us in the chat earlier and then had to go bye-bye. But it is the podcast where we play Star Trek characters who are serving aboard the Enterprise D in the TNG era. But we do our little stories and have our own adventures and our own lives sort of in the background of TNG episodes. And we have a great time making the show. And if you are a fan of Star Trek stuff, and especially a fan of humorous Star Trek stuff, I would encourage you to check out the Ensign's Log. And if you do, I hope you enjoy it. This weekend, this Sunday, is the last Sunday of the month. So we are having our monthly 1 hour patron and member hangout starting at noon Eastern time on this channel on Sunday. So again, if you are a patron or a channel member and you're available from around noon to 1 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern, and you want to join us live in a hangout, in a Zoom call that will be live streamed on the channel for an hour, that'd be great. It's always a lot of fun. And other than that, I think that's it. So I don't see any final. Oh, John Burns in the chat says Joe Piscopo was an SNL. Does that mean Johnny Dangerously was an SNL movie? No, because Johnny Dangerously was not an SNL sketch. And on that note, that's it. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope everybody who celebrated had a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you have a good weekend. And those of you who are thinking of joining us on Sunday for the live stream, for the patron and member live stream, I'll see you then, and I'll see you next week for all the videos that I'll publish then. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. I'll see you later. Take care of yourselves.